Welcome to New Mexico Black Rifle Operators Union. I'm your host, Sean. First thing we need to clear is it's come down, it's official, it's now everywhere on New Mexico news sites. They are going after magazines, 10 rounds or anything larger than 10 rounds in New Mexico. This is bullcrap. We fought this battle before, but it's time to gather up your stuff again. Why I bring that up first is it also led into the topic of today's podcast. Yesterday, also, if you hadn't seen it on the news, there was a huge disruption where all flights were canceled. Well, not canceled, grounded in the United States. Now, it turns out there was a software problem. But it leads me to think about the situations we've been in, especially, and I say we as the 2A community guys. Myself, I've not been in any real weird stuff other than, been to protests because, well, I want to make sure that we keep New Mexico tactical. It brought up those thoughts, though, of January 6th, how stupid the whole thing is. But no one's really talked about Ray Epps. I mean, well, there's a lot of people talking about him now, but no one in Congress is really talking about Ray Epps. And the FBI said they can neither confirm nor deny that he was an agent. Which leads me to think about something that is kind of a touchy subject, and is kind of a boomer subject in a weird way. But it is kind of apropos to all of us in the 2A community. And it's the gray man. If you don't know what a gray man is, the idea is to match your surroundings so you can either conduct operations going from point A to point B, gather intelligence for whatever organization or for yourself that you're going to do, but not stick out like a sore thumb. And if you've seen the memes of the FBI guys surrounded around, January 6th and other stuff, they all seem to have the same, haircut. They wore the same shades. They wore the same attire, basically. And that goes totally against what a gray man would be, okay? A gray man should be someone like an undercover cop. When I say this, they should blend into their backgrounds. Why is that a thing for this podcast? Well, you never know when you're going to be stranded. And that's where a gray man could be a good thing. And what I mean by that is imagine being caught behind enemy lines, so to speak, and you need to make it back to friendly lines. Whether that's home or whether that's, you're at work and stuff breaks down and you have to get home. How would you do that? And today's topic, the gray man, I'm going to explain what it should be and where it goes into play. Now, gray man means that you're probably the most unremarkable man in the room. At least you're not one to be noticed. When it comes to attire, you want to match your surroundings. That means if you're going to get into Antifa places, you probably want to wear what they do, black bloc. You want to be as familiar to them as the wall. And what I mean by that is, like, you don't show up to something like that wearing a 3%er logo or Blue Lives Matter logo in an Antifa crowd. Nor would you wear an Antifa shirt or a Che Guevara shirt in a conservative crowd, in a Blue Lives Matter crowd. It's because you would stick out like a sore thumb. So, in my scenario, thinking about the airports and about the airplanes being grounded, and you're trapped, say, in Durango. If you're in northwest New Mexico, it's about an hour away from, the airport is about an hour away from one of our not larger, but the largest city in northwest New Mexico. What do you do with that? How do you get from point A to point B? Now, most people would say that's not a big deal, but if things really did become unhinged, how would you get there? In this scenario specifically, if you're in an airport and you're trying to get back and you don't have a vehicle, what are you going to do? Now, this is where you can rely on public transportation to some degree on a good day. But what are you going to do when the infrastructure pieces aren't there? I mean, you're going to have to either hump it, walk it, that is, or get a cab, get somebody to give you a ride close to your AO. You want to match your garb, your equipment, to everything that is going to be useful but as covert as possible. In this, guys, you may want to hide your cell phone. Your cell phone is a valuable tool, but if they're tracking you, or and I say they, the government or someone is tracking you, how do you evade that? And you can do that with something as simple as tinfoil or a Faraday's box or a Faraday's bag. There's several tutorials how to make those, and I'm not going to go into that stuff. What I'm talking about is, like, you're wearing your gear. What are you going to wear? What do you wear daily? Would you blend in? You need to look at those ideas, because as society seems to be kind of losing its marbles, it may behoove you to have that idea or mindset if you have to escape your own environment to go to the wild, if you know what I mean, to like leave. So you're evacuating yourself. You're evacuating yourself out. To that end, you don't want to look like a cop, even if you're a cop. You don't want to look like a soldier. You want to look like a normal citizen, a normal person. That means that you're not going to wear body armor. You're not going to wear a specialty bag that you just looks overly tactical. You're going to wear you're going to carry a JanSport backpack. Why? Because it'll carry the tools you need, but it doesn't raise any eyebrows. Same thing if you like camouflage. You may want to have camouflage for the wilds, so to speak, but you don't want that in an urban environment. Nor do you want to have something that would, like a red hat that says something, for instance. You don't want that because that picks you out in a crowd. Now, this all sounds like speculation and why would you do this, but think about that in reality. There is a time and a place where you may have to, blend in. And while you may want to carry your cell phone because it is a great listening device, it is a camera, that's a great intel idea, but you probably don't want to carry yours specifically for location data. This is where burner phones may be a good idea. This makes it a little bit more, this is all called fieldcraft, basically. And why would you do that again is you're just trying to make it home, or you're trying to make it to your objective. I'm not giving you these ideas or tips so that you can be a turd. It's more so sometimes there is such a thing as security by obscurity, by blending in. And there's nothing wrong with that. Having to fight usually means that you're going to have to win, but you're also risking very much so that you don't win. And a fight you avoid is probably the better task if you're trying to get back home and you're trying to do this without being harassed or slowed down. So to that end, what kind of gun would you carry if you're going to be a gray man or if you're in this situation? Not at an airport, obviously, because you can't have one there unless you picked it up in your car on the way home, and in which case you should have some other tools in your car. But probably a concealed carry would be a good plan, or a deep concealment gun. All those truck gun ideas or where you're going to fit them in a bag, that sounds great so that you have a little more firepower if things go sideways, but it also is easier to detect. More specifically, if you're in a crowd of people and you have a bag that is shaped funny, not a normal backpack, it's going to draw attention from anybody that is in the security field just because it's different and there's more ways things could hide in there. To that end, you want to blend, right? So you're going to use that Hot Topic backpack rather than your own tactical one to get you there. That said, that's if you have one. That's if you have access to one. In my scenario where you're having to come with what you have on you, you're jumping clean, basically. You want to have a regular set of kit. And when I say a regular set of kit, at any given time I carry a lighter, a flashlight, I conceal carry, a pocket knife, some chapstick. Why do I carry all this crap? It boils back down to my dad. Dad wanted me to be able to learn the skills and stuff that I needed, that if I had to be pushed out of an airplane or a car, that I could survive. I garner great confidence from that, from all the training that Dad, Boy Scout dudes, survival dudes that Dad got me involved with, that I can get away with living off the land if I have to. It's not pleasant always. It's not great. You're always having to scrounge and deal with stuff, but you're alive. And I think that is where I started thinking about the gray man stuff, especially when you see every plane in the United States being grounded again. And the only time I know of that ever happening beforehand was 9/11. And this was because their departure software or arrival software, it may be both, had some issues that they couldn't figure out how to get around it. And it corrupted itself, and they had to restore it. And a long story short, during this time frame, nobody was taking off. People were landing if they were already in the air. And it made me think about those apocalyptic movies, those post-apocalyptic movies, and how many times you see people carrying a go bag and it just looks like a go bag. And in reality, that's not what you want. You don't want to stick out like a sore thumb. You want to look like I said, the wall. You want to look like the background. You don't want to draw attention to yourself. And you do that with your behaviors too. If you've ever read any stories about prisoners of war that escaped during World War II, there was a few that did this, and they couldn't adapt to the cultures around them. More specifically, they talk about, in one of the books I read, there's a soldier who escaped from, he was a POW. He escaped, but the only bathroom that this culture had in public was an open-air bathroom where you just walked up and dropped trowel and did your thing. Well, they were too embarrassed, too modest to do this, and it stuck out because other people were having no problems doing this. And if you're willing to stick out that much, or you do stick out that much, you're going to be found. And in this type of scenario, you don't want that. You're going to have to make some compromises that you don't necessarily like just to get by. And in those extreme examples where, the Nazis are chasing you down to try to get you back in prison or possibly shoot you, dropping trowel and going to the bathroom in the middle of everybody seems like the least of your problems. You should have been able to suck it up and swallow pride and just do it and roll forward. The other thing is knowing the language. In German, knowing German is fairly common, believe it or not. But what happens is the Germans used to trip American soldiers up by asking them a question in English, and they would answer, not catching themselves, because that's their native language. The same thing has to happen when you're in this gray man type of thing. If you're portraying an immigrant or you're portraying whatever, you can't break that role. You have to be that actor for as long as you're in that situation. And I think there's a lot of people that think about this stuff and they're like, oh yeah, I could do gray man. I'll just throw this in here and have this nice little backpack and I'll have my folding AR in there and all this other stuff. You stick out. You look like a cop. you look like the bad dude. That's not going to get you where you need to be. And with these increasing draconian rules, such as a magazine ban, I could see, well, we've already seen the weaponization of the FBI towards normal citizens. What would happen if, and we already saw our governor weaponize the state police against us. What happens when they come for you and you have to leave? Freemen don't ask permission. And I damn sure am not hiding or burying anything anymore. But if I have to leave, how do you leave? What do you do? Don't be that guy that gets stuck in those stupid situations where you stick out like a neon sign. Like, share, subscribe, be great.